Welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter Podcast, your number one source of all things bodybuilding. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes. Now, here's your host, Leroy Rollins.
All right, people, welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter Podcast. I am here with this familiar face. You guys should know him by now, Branden Liezert. Me and this guy, we're going to chat about the, what's the official title for this? Natural Pro Qualifier? Is that what it was referred to as?
Well, I always call it Natty Nationals.
Nationals.
Nationals, right? So,
yeah, so this past Friday, Saturday, today is Monday as of recording this, Monday the 5th. So Friday the 2nd, Saturday the 3rd, this Natty Nationals went down. So we're going to chat about it, our thoughts on it, thoughts on the athletes, thoughts on the structure of the show, how we felt about it, and all that good stuff. So a little background on where me and this guy have been at this level of competition. Back in 2017, before the Canadian kind of bodybuilding industry did a big switch, it was the CBBF, Canadian Bodybuilding Federation. I did nationals with them. Which was our Natty Nationals, as we're going to refer to it as, I think, for the rest of this podcast. And it was kind of similar to this show where all of, supposedly Canada came together and competed. This was in Quebec, whereas this past weekend, and I think previously now it's in Toronto. Like, that's kind of the standard, I think.
I'm hoping it's centralized, so I kind of hope it stays there. Like, yeah, I could see Montreal, too, or Ottawa.
Yeah, so from my understanding, when it was the CBBF, when I did it, they rotated. So they'd go East Coast, Central, West Coast, East Coast, Central, or West Coast. Because traveling in general across the country is a pain, but traveling in general with bodybuilding is even more of a hassle just because there's a lot of other variables at play. I can see how being in Toronto, for guys like you and I is pretty sweet. It's a 2-hour drive. We're good to go. But what I found interesting is that when I did it, when they did rotate, the show was much smaller than when it was this year, I found.
Absolutely. And last year, too. Last year, it was an unreal amount of competitors. I never thought in a million years that there'd be that many people on a natural stage, even if it was nationals.
Yep.
The difference, the biggest difference from probably the CBBF national level and then the CPA is your CPA shows, even in BC, if someone's living in BC, they can travel to Ontario and still get qualified, right? Whereas before it was there was a BC ABBA, there was the Alberta one, Saskatchewan, Maritimes, whatever they did over there, however many bodybuilders there are,
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more of a level playing field, and it's a little bit more of a higher echelon to get into nationals now that everything is a little bit more level, right? And so you don't have like the Maritimes, the East Coast is the right example. I'm not picking on them; it's just a population. But you don't have people that are coming from the Maritimes that just because they won a certain show in PI or whatever that are necessarily taking spots away from other people throughout Canada in more populated, more densely populated areas.
Yeah, for sure. Like, one of the guys that I know, Conor St John, from out east, I guess, not out west, he did a show as a little warm-up show, and I think he did both classic and open, and it was 2 guys in each class. And that's strictly a population thing, right? Not that there's any bodybuilding's less popular out there, there's just less people to do it, right?
Yeah, he actually. That's a great example because I actually didn't know who he was until a couple weeks ago, and then he followed me on Instagram. I was looking through his pictures, and I was like, "Holy, that's a legitimate national level competitor from out east."
Yeah.
So
the other thing too I want to touch on is now it's it used to be regional, provincial, national. So in Canada, I don't know where everybody's gonna be watching this from, but in Canada we have provinces. Ontario, BC, Saskatchewan, all that good stuff. So you used to have regional events, which would be your local area. So for Branden and I, it was a small town, Cobourg, that we both did. And then you would do provincials, right, which was all of your province, which would be, a higher level, in theory, a higher caliber show because you had to qualify for that. And then you had to qualify from provincials to nationals. Whereas now they've switched it all where you just have national qualifiers. So they've kind of, I don't know how I feel about it. I think, the provincials.
Oh, I can definitely chime in because open and natural. I have friends that compete in the open, and especially at open provincials in Ontario, it was a more consistent depth to the show.
Yep.
Than it was nationals. Like I said, because you get these competitors that, even though they're great at the local level and in their province, they're standouts. When it comes to BC, Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, there's a whole different...
It's a big gap.
They're not even in the same lane.
Yep. And I found that when I went, the jump from regionals to provincials was bigger than the jump from provincials to nationals when I did it. And the show, actually, provincials was actually bigger than nationals. So for Branden and I, provincials is going to be a lot of people from Toronto, which, as a lot of people watching this probably know, Toronto is, how many millions of people, and that's what we have to contend with. Whereas, our friend Connor out east, it might only be, 1,000 people total that could be potential. Whereas in Toronto, you could be tens of thousands of candidates, right? So it's just, it's been structured different, and I don't know. I think that's where, and we're going to touch on this, the caliber of athletes that we saw this past weekend. It's a big range. Like at a national level, you're going to, if you told somebody, okay, this is the best Canada has to offer, what you see is a very broad spectrum of guys that qualified.
Absolutely. So, and that's the other thing too. So when it goes from provincial to national, and I think Ontario is such a good example because it's in Toronto.
Yeah.
People are not going to skip out on competition for travel. Now, for nationals, even if it's localized in the center of Canada, there are some people that are going to skip just because, think of the travel, the time, the money, everything that it sort of takes to come from BC or to come from
your
East
flight
Coast,
alone,
right? Like it's not exactly practical.
Yeah.
If you are trying to get your feet wet, if you're trying to move up in placing, if you're not sure if you are going to battle for an overall, it might not be realistic and it might not be plausible or financially responsible, or for whatever reason you might not do it. Whereas provincials, every single province, even for me, I know you said for you live a little closer to Toronto than I do, but it's 4 hours from me to Toronto, right? And then that is, if you have an early check-in time or something like that, they did this year, that's a huge, and then sometimes if you're taking time off work, it's just different for people, but especially, if we had to go to BC, that's a whole different mental process, right? It's a whole different decision. Yeah. So that's where I see a lot of it coming from.
Yeah, it's just interesting how they've kind of structured it, and how, it can favor, it literally, your decision to compete can be based on where you live. Right. And for people not from Canada, I went to Spain. I competed in Spain, and to fly to another country in Spain was like $80. Yeah. For like Branden said, for someone to BC to fly to Toronto, you're looking at $700. So you have so many other things to think about. You have your cost of your hotel, your meals, your registration, your tan, all this stuff. It's expensive as it is. And then you got to drop $1,000 to fly here. And you said, for someone that, if they're not fighting for an overall, if they're not, looking at themselves with a naked eye and saying, okay, realistically, is there a chance I get a pro card? If the answer is no, that is it worth the $700 flight? Maybe not.
For sure. And then think about if you're a female and you've qualified for nationals in a more or less densely populated area. Yep. And your first show of the next coming year is going to be nationals, and you're paying for a new suit, you're paying for tanning, you're paying for hair and makeup. Yeah. They get the rough and ugly end of the stick compared to males, for sure.
It's brutal. It really is. It's not fair. It really isn't. My fiance competed with me in April, and I've only ever seen my perspective on what it is to compete, right? You can vouch for this. Your suit is $100. You get a tan, you get your hotel, you're good to go. Whereas she had, you said, she had hair and makeup, and all of a sudden it's an extra $1,000 just to get, quote unquote beautiful for the show. Like it's kind of ridiculous, really.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to I hate to use this guy as an example sometimes. Well, most of the time, almost every time. But Rich Piana always said, you're doing all this stuff for a classic trophy. At the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like everyone has their own different reasons. I don't ever do it for. I've won a show. I don't do it to win a show. I don't do it for any other reason than I'm passionate about it and I love it. And if it makes sense in my life at that given time, then I'll do it. But for people that are hardwired on, they try to do it for a placing or something like that.
Yep.
That just becomes so much harder because you don't know who's going to show up, and especially, I hate to keep ragging on the East Coast, man, but the East Coast, if you Conor's a great example. He's an absolute standout there. Luckily, he's actually a great competitor, and he can do well at the national level. But someone similar to him that just not quite at that level yet, they have no scope, even no platform to really test the waters at a national level show, right? So if that's a person that's thinking I'm going to do this just so I can be a pro, win a class, whatever, real difficult decision you have to make.
Yeah, I think to sum it up real quick, the best in Newfoundland versus the best in Toronto is probably a big gap, right? Just strictly for the fact of
probably there's always outliers.
Yeah.
There's always outliers.
Yeah.
But let's just say if you were to take the best 10 bodybuilders, right, from each one, there would be a more consistent high-level physique in Ontario versus PI or Nova Scotia for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's dive into what we saw this past weekend. So Branden and I kind of just jotted down some points we want to talk about, and we'll just kind of expand on them. So kind of first thing we'll touch on is the caliber of athletes we saw and some standouts that we saw. Now, I'm just going to take this from a bodybuilding perspective. I'm not going to get into figure, bikini, all that stuff. I'm going to stay in my lane, which I know more about, okay, bodybuilding. Even classic physique, for example, because it's really very, very non-differential. They're very similar physiques. So why don't you start, man? What'd you see? What overall, looking at photos, I have it up on my Instagram now, the CPA page, just to kind of refresh my brain a little bit. What'd you see?
So I won't stay in my lane because muscle insider, I have to at least know a little bit about each division. And then I'm coaching athletes and like you are, and they're in different positions too, in different divisions. Honestly, I thought it was an extremely inconsistent show in terms of conditioning. Yes. And it really bothers me at the national level, especially when it comes to classic physique, when it comes to women's physique, when it comes to men's open bodybuilding. There's so much that everyone has in their control to be that much better. And I don't know what it is, but even since I started thinking about competing, I've seen such a drastic change in the consistency of conditioning at shows. And I have no idea. I can't put my finger on one thing what it is. I honestly think social media is a big thing, and I think it's too easy to take in maybe non-expert or non-advanced or legitimate or responsible advice or comments. And when your best friend from elementary school says that you're ready for the show when you're 8 weeks out and you really look like you're 16 weeks out, you've got to have someone else in your corner or not be delusional enough to accept that.
Take responsibility.
No way that any men's open bodybuilder, natural or open, should get onto a stage without lines in their glutes and separated hamstrings and vascularity in their arms and their quads. There should never be any lower back fat or oblique fat or anything like that. And 80% of the competitors were like that, right from bantamweight right up to heavyweight. It's ridiculous. The girl that won the overall in women's physique, my competitor at Barrie was against her in figure, and she ended up winning the overall in physique in Barrie. Basia something, or I might be butchering the first name. Real bright future. If if it turns out that she wants to compete next year and just put on muscle and jump the IFBB pro ranks, and she does everything right and everything that you would expect her to do, I think she'll be an immediate standout. The men's open overall winner, that crazy break future, unreal, great conditioning. I think he used Dream Tan though, which is super weird. That was a little weird, but
I'm pretty sure I read that he's the first Korean pro. I think I read that.
I wonder if it's like first Korean pro in general or men's bodybuilding pro. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure.
Yeah.
But either way, like he looks pretty young for sure. He looks like he's our age or maybe younger.
Yeah.
Real bright future. Look at Quentin from last year, right? Or 2 years ago, whatever it was. Like unreal potential that they both have. Like I don't know. I was a little bit underwhelmed at the conditioning and just the like kind of preparedness of most of the competitors. Like it's a national level show.
Yep.
Lightweight. I mean, we were talking about it as it was going on. You knew the clear winner there as soon as they stepped in on stage. But that is only because it's not like he's super complete or anything like that. He's a great bodybuilder. I'm not taking anything away from him. But his conditioning was just so far ahead of everyone in a division where you can get as conditioned as you want, and they're never going to take any points away from that.
Yeah.
What are they doing? What are they doing? Why isn't the work being put in? There should be, like, it shouldn't be that black and white, yes and no. There should be a stark contrast in the condition of, at a national level show. I don't care if it's in Canada or if it's in the Vatican City. I don't care what the population is. There should never be that much of a stark contrast between first and second in condition. You have to take pride in your physique on stage. If you're still lacking condition, how can you be happy with that?
Yep.
That's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, and I think it went for all like bodybuilding classes, especially. It was a very large gap between, like, they would post top 5, right? So looking at photos at top 5, like first belonged there, and the rest were kind of just like, okay, who's second? Who's the least, the least docking points, right? So you look at the guy that came first for lightweights, for example, like you said, Branden and I were both like watching, probably refreshing our feeds every 5 minutes, wanting to see where the guys were. And the guy that won lightweights, like he said, belonged in that first place spot. But again, it wasn't that he was dramatically better, I guess you could say. He just nailed his conditioning. Structurally, he was good, as were most of them. A lot of the lightweights looked very similar as far as size and structure. Like, there wasn't any one of them that had, like, the best arms of the group or the best quads. But he just, like you said, he out-conditioned them, right? So all of a sudden, he's here, and it's not second, third, fourth, fifth. It's first, second, third, fourth, fifth. It was a bigger
100%.
gap.
In light heavyweight and middleweight and heavyweight, it was a little bit closer, but those guys have so much more muscle to play with, and their structures are, like generally better for bodybuilding. It's hard to say. Like, I will say this: that guy that won the lightweights, unreal side shots, and that is in a large part due to his conditioning.
Yep.
And thickness, and being 4'6", and probably being just hardly under the lightweight limit.
Yep.
And of course, I'm joking and don't mean anything by that, but he really nailed it. He deserved it, and that's obviously the one that we paid most attention to. But it kind of was a similar theme through all bodybuilding. And listen, I'm curious. Like, I love bodybuilding. Men's physique and women's bikini, I don't get fired up to watch that or anything like that. So I didn't pay as much attention. Yep. There were some really great women's bikini athletes, actually. I saw in photos that do have pro potential and like can do like big things in the future.
Yep. It's
just not what drew me. It doesn't catch my eye.
Yep.
That's just the honest truth. But
still a muscle sport, right?
It's like, in my eyes, man, like men's bodybuilding, classic physique, women's physique, even women's figure, like that's what puts butts in seats. And believe me, if my butt's already in the seat, I'm going to enjoy women's bikini. Like, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just I'm a purist. And I love the '90s bodybuilding. I love the '80s. I love the '70s, and I love where it really started to popularize. And I like all of those icons from back then.
Yeah.
And I understand you want to get more people involved, and anyone that gets on stage, if they give it their best go, they get my respect.
Yep.
But it's not what ever drives me to a show. No one. God, I don't know anyone that really goes to a show to see. I'm not even going to finish that sentence because I'll have too much heat on me.
Next part of this, I did write down a few names that looking at them kind of jumped out at me. The first one, I want your thoughts on the junior that won. I think he's got a lot going for him. I agree. First off, let's just get the elephant out of the room. His conditioning needed work. I wouldn't say he got as lean as he could have, but as a junior, when it comes to structure, shape, he looked like a big kid. I didn't write down what class he was in.
Let me tell you something. So his last name started with a C, if I remember correctly.
His name is Colin Brannigan.
Colin Brannigan. Okay,
yeah.
So C. Brannigan. Crazy quads on him. Absolutely insane lower body.
Very good shape.
At the Barry Show 1 week ago,
yep.
Evan Alexiou. That kid has a bright future. He's got he's young. He's a junior too. He won the overall in men's bodybuilding. Won the overall in classic physique. He was a true novice. It was his first show, and this is as much of a shout out to him as anyone's going to get in the podcast. But man, I was seriously impressed with him. Posing was flawless. Fidel helped him with it, so you know it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And man, he was the rock star of the show. I think next year, that's probably, if he still falls within the junior age limit, that's your front runner for junior men's classic physique and men's open bodybuilding.
Nice.
But he would have done well in this particular lineup because his conditioning was real good.
Right.
At the Barry Show, he still had maybe 5 or 6 pounds that come off, hamstrings, glutes. Lower back was dialed in. Insane midsection, striated quads as a junior, right? And
yep.
Upper body was nice and fairly complete as you would expect anyone as a junior to be, yep. Especially at a natural show.
Yep.
To me, there was no doubts about that. I think that this Colin guy has the real potential in 3 or 4 years to kind of follow in the footsteps of Quentin, and now this. Can't remember this guy's name, but the new Korean pro from this weekend.
Yeah.
But conditioning is elusive, and you don't see very many overall winners at a natural national level show without real solid conditioning.
Yep.
And sometimes people just don't get that conditioning, and it eludes them for 3 or 4 years, and they try, and sometimes they spit the bit. Or sometimes they don't spit the bit and it never gets better. Or sometimes it takes literally a decade to figure it out.
Yep.
I hope that he really does figure it out. And I think that he definitely has the potential to turn pro. But how many times have you used the word potential? And how many times have you used the word potential and it actually been fulfilled in the future?
Yep. No, I agree. I think, like you said, I think he's got a bright future. But it'll take, like you said, nailing that conditioning. And that's something that, for me, right? If you compare when you did Coburg the first time to when I did Coburg the first time, you would see a very big gap in the conditioning between you and I. You had it nailed. Mine needed work. But I'm proud to say that since then, 3 years later, which funny you said 3 years, I think I've made great improvements, right? So I can vouch for the guy, right? It might take a couple years, but not to say it's impossible, right?
Yeah. And it's also very different too, and every physique is different. So with your physique, you wouldn't want to get as dry and hard as I do, because your structure doesn't go that way, and your muscle mass for your structure doesn't go that way. You want to come in as full as possible. I really gravitate, even in my head, just towards, I like a more conditioned, aesthetic, hard, dry look.
Yep.
And I am never, ever going to touch a natural stage at more than 165 pounds. It's not in my genetics.
Yeah.
If I train for 10 more years, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So what what do? I have to play the cards that I'm dealt, just like everyone else does, right?
Yep.
And the nice thing about a junior like that is that big, that has that much muscle mass already, is you have muscle to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Even if you want to spare some to get in right condition.
Yeah. Yeah, you got playing room.
He's got plenty of room. His structure is amazing. And depending on how old he is, he's only going to get more frame to fill out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, bright future on him. Hopefully he does nail his conditioning.
Yeah, 100%. We already touched on the guy that won the overall. The guy that won the classic physique, Dmitry Williams, Vincy Dragon, as he goes by on Instagram. I've been following him for quite some time, so he was somebody that I was looking forward to watching just because I had seen what he was bringing, and I think it was well deserved. I really do. I think there was no question when you compare the winners of each class for classic physique that it was his. He's another one very reminiscent of Quinton. The structure, the frame, the shapes there. Just keep going, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just keep doing everything right and don't screw up and don't get complacent is what I would say.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other thing, too. From shows earlier in the year to Classic Physique this year, there's a few people that made it onto a national stage by maybe a class being smaller or whatever that I noticed in stage photos and in videos from like the official page of nationals.
Yeah.
And one thing I definitely want to tell all competitors is you cannot be obnoxious or boisterous or flamboyant or too confident on stage if your physique and your condition doesn't match that confidence and flamboyance and everything like that. It was almost obvious that people were getting docked, rightfully so, for stage presence or lack thereof, or physique presence, or whatever it is, at the Barrie Show, at shows earlier that I attended this year. And I feel like probably it's the same at nationals. And I'm not just a grumpy guy that likes to pick apart everyone like that, but the best example of all time for this is Dexter Jackson. Okay, when he's on, you know he's on, and he knows he's on because of how he just takes up all the stage presence, getting into poses.
Yeah.
You know, when he sets up for a pose, how he executes a pose, how he comes out of a pose. He just won his 29th career pro win.
Very impressive.
In Tampa. Like, the guy's unreal, but you can't try and emulate that with soggy glutes and watery hamstrings and no vascularity or like you. It just it's the same recurring theme, right? Like, like maybe people get on stage and like they don't. It's their first time at national level or whatever, blah blah blah, and they don't actually know what it takes to be in condition or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe they've never been there. Maybe who knows, whatever it is, but you can't try and emulate that if you're not in condition. Like, you stick out like a sore thumb. There's a lot of examples, especially in classic physique, because you want to see classic. You want to hit these great poses and stuff like that. You want to hit like these epic, when you're looking through magazines or you're throwing a throwback page or whatever, you're following a throwback page on Instagram with these black and white photos of Franco Colombo or Tom Platz or whatever, or Mike Menser, and you want to hit these poses. You really need to be realistic in how people are perceiving you doing that.
Yep.
That's my advice.
No, for sure. I agree. The last name I had down was the heavyweight winner, Alexis Dubois. I believe he's from Montreal. Belonged with Team Atlas, and they were posting a lot during the day, so that's kind of how I got wind of him before he had won. All of a sudden, there's this giant dude who looks like he could be our age, mid to late 20s, which is pretty impressive for how he looked. That's another guy. Just want to throw that name out there. If he ever watches this, congrats, my man. You looked great.
That guy would probably win the most potential award, I would say, out of the men. Like, his frame and his actual development is really good.
Yeah.
His actual muscular development is really good. His conditioning was actually pretty solid too. I would say very solid.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how much room he still has to put on muscle that wouldn't take away from his look. So, like, the lightweight winner that we're so impressed with, if you put on another 10 or 15 pounds of muscle, it might take away from his overall look.
Yeah, he'd get the blocky look.
Yeah, Tony Freeman, the X-Men, had a really good quote about Phil Heath, and it kind of came to fruition. And he said, you can't put 3 stories on a 2-story frame.
Yep.
Like, you can't add too much muscle because it'll take away from your overall look.
Yep.
So I think that's where it kind of sucks for guys like you and I and even welterweights and middleweights. Like, where do you really put on an extra 20 or 25 pounds of muscle?
Yeah.
If you do want to take a stab at turning pro and compete in the IFBB and do well, if you really want to do that. So the real potential is honestly at light heavyweight, heavyweight, and super heavyweight. Now, no one gets on stage as a super heavyweight at a national level show if they're in condition because, well, you either have God tier genetics or this is an alternate universe that we are talking about and it doesn't exist on planet Earth. But this guy definitely has the most potential that I saw out of the whole weekend.
Yeah. And quickly, your take on why he didn't take the overall. I think, personally, looking at the lineup, he just got outsized, I think, honestly. Like, condition-wise, he might have got edged a little bit, but I think they were comparable. But the Korean fellow that took the overall, I think when you compare them, I think he was a little bit shorter, if I remember correctly, which can kind of trick the eye when someone's taller. They can look thinner. I think that's where he kind of got edged out myself.
I think, in my experience, Dream Tan looks real crappy in photo through a lens. So photos and videos.
Right.
And I don't think it was Absolute Touch that did it. Absolute Touch is great. But I think that the Koreans, God, I hate saying that. The overall winners, quads, were probably like a big standout, eye-grabbing body part. I think his conditioning was better, and I don't only think that he was drier and harder. I think there was, you put them side by side, I think there was actually a little bit more that needed to come off the other guy that we're talking about. When it comes to completeness or how close they are to completeness given their frame, overall winner rightfully is a little bit farther ahead there.
Yep.
But if you were to go pose for pose, they're real close, and it almost comes down to preference. Like, I mean, and everyone has their own favorites on what they like most. I thought how the overall winner was hitting the front double bicep was a little weird. Like, I didn't think it was actually showing off his physique the best, to be honest.
Yeah.
Side shots, he's great. Like, I mean, side shots and back shots, you can really see the condition, right? And so I think he did have a slight edge there. And when it comes to something that's that close, if you're asking me, and it's not correct, it's not black and white, it's not like there's no set in stone rule here, but if something's really close and someone is a tad better conditioned, I gravitate towards that versus muscular development versus stage presence versus whatever it is. I like conditioning. I have to. That's just, it's closest to me, so I hold it in highest regard and highest priority.
Yep.
If the other competitor won the overall, it'd be hard to make an argument against him as well.
Yep. Cool. Yep. I agree. Okay, next point that you had mentioned you want to talk about was the class sizes. Specifically men's open. But overall, as a general for the show, I'll give my quick take. I wrote down the numbers. So bantamweight, we had 3, with 1 that didn't show. Lightweight, we had 5. Welterweight, we had 6. Middleweight, we had 6. Light heavy 7, and heavyweight we had 5. So across the board, you're averaging 5 and 6 per class, which if you were to compare that to the men's physique, to the bikini, even classic physique, you're looking at class sizes of 10 plus on average. So yeah, let's talk about it, man. What's going on with bodybuilding? Are we a dying breed or what?
Dude, I have no weird delusions or anything like that. For a long time, we've been a dying breed, and it kind of sucks, man. Because, like I said earlier, I'm a purist, man.
Yeah.
Like for whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's boxing or any other hobby or sport or whatever, man. Like, I like the roots of what something is.
Yep.
It really sucks that there's only that many people getting on. Man, men's open bodybuilding, how many total competitors were there then? 30, 25?
Yeah.
Like, take a stab at it. Just do your best. Just get in condition and get up on stage, and you might be a class winner at nationals at this point. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's at local shows, it's sickening. There's 8 competitors sometimes now.
Yeah,
like,
there's a lot of local shows. We'll call them regionals. It's not uncommon to see people take the win in bodybuilding classes because they're the only ones that were there. You get 6 classes, you got 6 athletes, 6 in the overall. It's just, and that leads to what we talked about at the beginning of this, is that the caliber that gets to nationals isn't necessarily because they belong there. They're the only one that showed up at their qualifier, and they were like, sweet, I'm good enough for nationals, and then they go to nationals and get crushed, and then I think that's where a lot of people stop, right? Which could be the root of the problem of why bodybuilding, we'll talk about our area in general, could be on the way out because people are qualifying that maybe shouldn't, and then getting their dreams crushed very early, and like you said, they have their best friend saying, oh man, you looked great up there, and maybe they didn't, right? And again, that's not saying they can't in the future, but this is a long game unless you've got God-given genetics and you respond really good to training in that year or two. This shit takes time.
For a lot of time. Listen, it's disheartening because even the people that finished 5th and 6th at nationals, they don't get that wake-up call that a lot of people need, not only in bodybuilding but in life, to kind of light that fire.
Yeah.
So here's a great example. Like you just said, there was someone that I know personally from Instagram, right, that finished 2nd at his qualifier to men's open bodybuilding natural nationals.
Yep.
And then he finished 4th in his class this year.
Yep.
And he doesn't see it as a disappointment or anything like that, even though he didn't even present his best version of his physique.
Right.
Okay. So his conditioning was off. He's still lacking in areas. He would be at least 1 weight class lighter if he was in true condition. But
okay.
there is no finishing in the 4th call out. There is no finishing in the 3rd call out to kind of give your head a smack and go, I need to really rethink things. I need to put more work in. I need to come up with a different plan, whatever it is that kind of goes on in his head, rattles around for a while and brings out something better, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is too, a lot of these guys that are in classic physique don't have any classic attributes to their physique. And I'm being serious here. And I'm not knocking them because if they went over to men's open, they would do great.
Yeah.
And how do I know they would do great? Because there's only 4 people in a class. So you're going to finish 3rd or better.
You're going to do great regardless.
Get out the 3rd call out, doing your arms over your head pose when you've got a blocky waist and narrow clavicles and no flaring quads and nothing that is classic about you. Go throw on some posing trunks, get a little bit more conditioned, and win a class at nationals. Yeah. There's nothing more upsetting to me as a coach or as someone in the audience is when you see someone that has a lot of potential
in another class,
in men's open, okay,
yeah,
and they're in men's physique or they're in classic physique, for whatever reason. It's not always because they don't want to work hard and they don't want to get conditioned. Maybe it's their idol is in that division or whatever. But men's open bodybuilding, that is the most impressive shit to me. That is, man. You see someone that can grind down to 3 or 4% body fat, hold muscle naturally, and get on stage and hold it together in a great stead, nail it.
Yeah.
Man, that's so impressive. The only thing that's more impressive is if a woman's bodybuilder or a women's physique athlete gets close to that condition and nails it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's more impressive to me.
Yeah.
But why are there 40 people in a physique class? You know what I mean? Why are there, at the Barry show, there must have been 40 or 50 physique guys, 30 or 40 bikini girls,
yep,
and then through all of the other classes, 10 or 15 competitors, maybe 20. What is going on?
So I want to see if we can answer this question, right? Why does nobody want to do bodybuilding? In the shortest phrase you can put it, why does nobody want to do bodybuilding?
I know the most clickbaity thing would be to say they don't want to put in work, but I don't even think that part gets to their head. That's the honest to God truth. I don't even think that it's appealing to most people anymore. I think bodybuilding is such a cult sport that most popularity is kind of intrinsic on social media.
Yeah.
And the most marketable look is men's physique and women's bikini. So I think that's where it originates from, or it has started originating from.
I mean, take this as a perfect example. You look at Christian Guzman, right? He's probably the biggest Instagram fitness influencer of our generation right now.
Don't know who he is. Don't know who he is. Don't know who you are, Christian. I actually don't. I promise you.
Really? Come on, don't lie.
Dude, I don't know who that is. I swear to God. I swear to God. I am not an Instagram bodybuilder at all.
Okay, so I'll quickly introduce you to this man. Alphalete Athletics, clothing. Come on, nothing, eh? Doesn't matter.
I know Alberto Nunez.
Good. I'm glad you do. But he's so when you talk about social media and Instagram and what people look at as appealing, you know, whether it's what attracts women or what's going to get you on a magazine or whatever, they would follow him more likely than Alberto Nunez, which is very unfortunate because everybody should be following Alberto Nunez. And he does men's physique, right? That's a look that I think this generation of we'll say physique athletes as a whole. I'm not talking men's physique as a whole. We're just saying the body as an athlete. That's what people are gravitating towards. They want that look. They want the beach boy, the guy that's on the magazine covers with the girls draped over him, right? Like they don't want to see the guy with veins running down his quads and lines in his butt. Like, you know what I mean? I think it's just unpopular.
Yeah. No, you know what? Girls and guys don't like that. You know what I mean? Like, so, and a lot of times, man, like, I hear from my friends that just go to the gym and aren't competitors or whatever, like, they're following guys like that, or they follow girls like this or whatever. And even if they're not competitors, like, it's just like an Instagram, like, just pretty much hookers or whatever. You know what I mean? So, but, like, for me, man, the weird thing is, like, I've been getting out of it less and less because, I mean, like, what's the sense? Like, why do I follow Derek Lunsford? You know what I mean? Because what valuable information comes at least from his Instagram?
Yep. And
am I ever going to look like that? And are those tips ever going to help me get closer to Derek Lunsford? No, they're not at all. But I like that, man. Like, when I'm training, I think of stuff like that. Like, I think of Flex Wheeler's back, and I think of Tom Platz's legs,
yeah,
and like I think of Marcus Rule's chest and all this stuff, man. Like, it doesn't inspire me or motivate me to look like Jeff Side.
Jeff Side, yeah.
It doesn't, because I know what the top echelon is. I know what, like, the maximal development is, and even if I never get to 20% of that, that's what I'm in there for, trying. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm sure this Christian Guzman guy is awesome, and like he's running a game, like running the show on Instagram and all this stuff, and that's his own prerogative. But like, that's not why I go to the gym, and that's not what motivates me or inspires me.
Yep.
I really don't think it's just such a short answer as like they don't want to put in work. I think it's like it's isolated from them to know what, dude. The most like, I hate it, man. Whenever like you're talking to a young kid and he's so gung-ho about bodybuilding, or so he thinks or whatever, and then like it comes up in a conversation and he doesn't know who Dorian Yates is, or like he doesn't know who Ronnie Coleman is.
Ronnie who?
Like, you don't love bodybuilding, man. You know what I mean? Like,
do you think so you're 20, you're a year older than me, right? You're 26?
I'm 8 years over 18. Yeah.
So
I'm young.
Me and you grew up in, we'll call it the same era, before Instagram, before Facebook, before YouTube. You and I both went to Walmart and we bought Flex magazine. You and I both went on bodybuilding.com and typed chest workouts. Yes. You and I both went to GNC or Body Systems and bought the same shit, I'm sure. We both took Super Pump 250, don't lie.
Celtech.
So, Celtech, exactly, all the techs. And I think we were kind of the tail end of like that pure love of bodybuilding, not the love of like fitness, because I'm not going to say I'm fit. I'm a bodybuilder. I can't run anymore. Let's be honest. I can't jump. I get it.
Bro, you should see me on the base path when I'm playing ball.
Man kills it. But
Brando, Stanton.
Yeah, and like what I'm trying to get at is like I don't see anybody anymore buying the magazines and watching the videos. Man, I remember going to like fitness expos and buying like Fuad Abiad's DVD. Right?
Oh yeah, but
yeah, sure. Like that's.
And hey, dude, I love Fuad. Okay,
he's the man. Like, he's the first bodybuilder I ever spoke with. I love it.
Yeah, man. Coburg. When I was doing my prep for Coburg, he was doing a prep for maybe the Arnold's or something like that. He'd go on live, and like every day I was talking to him, man. It was dope. But hey, since he got with Cage Muscle, that's the kind of shit I do not like to see out of an IFBB pro bodybuilder on his Instagram. I don't like that shit, man. It's just like all marketing and like, oh, tag a friend if you like this, and like, have you ever done this? Comment below. Like, dude, what? That's not in my head what an IFBB pro bodybuilder is, right? And I understand it's a different game now, and like he's doing it for money, and I get it, and that's smart, and it's for his future and whatever. But man, it sucks that it has to be that way. And I know if you asked him, if he would rather it not be that way. Yeah.
You know the answer.
Say yes, and I know that.
Don't lie to me, Fuad. Don't lie to me.
Yeah.
No,
100%.
Yeah. So I think we kind of answered it. Like it's unfortunate. I don't know if there will be a resurgence of open bodybuilding. I really don't. I don't know. As shitty as that sounds, like I don't know. I don't know what it would take to get people more interested.
Here's the other thing too. The actual IFBB. So think of it as like the NHL or the NFL or whatever. There are not enough personalities and athletes and competitions where these top tier athletes with personalities are going to shows like, I mean, Milo Sarshev and Kevin Levrone and Sean Ray and Dexter Jackson. Man, in the 90s, they used to compete 8 times a year. They used to compete 10 times a year. Like, actually. Like, that's not an exaggeration. That used to happen.
Yep.
And they would, man, travel the world. And so, man, imagine if we had let's say if we had 5 Olympians every year going to the New York Pro and the Toronto Pro.
Yeah.
That, man, I would want to go to that. I have had no inclination in the last few years to go to the Toronto Pro or the New York
Pro. Oh, it's so
Pro.
shit now, man. It's so annoying. When I went when I was a teenager, it was dope. Now it's garbage.
Yeah. You get 3 guys that are going to show up and try to get to the Olympia on points, or the one guy that wins, and that's it. And then those people that you maybe get to see that day, especially if they're one of your favorites or whatever, and you finally go to the Toronto Pro, even though you know it's not going to be a stacked show or whatever, or the New York Pro.
Yep. You
can't follow their shows for the rest of the year because they get their qualification, they shut her down. Yep. That's it. They're done. So why would you follow bodybuilding throughout the year? Unless you're someone like us that are purists. Yep. If you're only an occasional casual fan, or someone that is a fan of it but not really a purist or whatever, what do you really care about men's open bodybuilding?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Next one. We touched on Caliber. Are you still there?
Oh, I'm 100% still here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your thing changed.
Just got something
Quickly touching on the 2-day format of the show. I know we both have different opinions on this a little bit. So my first take on it. So quick background. The show for the men, pre-judging was Friday night. Finals was Saturday night. So it was a 24-hour basically differential there. And then for the women, pre-judging was Saturday morning and finals were Saturday night. So they had the 1-day format. Me personally, I've done the 1-day format. We have pre-judging in the morning and finals at night. That's how most shows are run around here for sure. But when I went to the States, you had prejudging in the morning, you had like a 20-minute intermission, and then you had finals. That was awesome. I'm gonna put my hand up right there and say that is my preferred way of doing it, because you peak and then you have that little bit of a window after you're off stage. You probably got an hour or two where you can get some more carbs in you, pump up even more for finals. You keep your condition, you just refine it that little bit of time. I like that personally. So for me, the 2-day format, I've never done it, so I can't give my full-on opinion, but just from what I've done, I don't know if I'd be a fan.
So I've also never done it. I know competitors, somewhat personally, that have, and they gravitate to... It's really split. Here's what my methodology and my thought process would be. We talked about this before. So... yeah, obviously, always you want to nail it for prejudging.
Yeah.
Like, that's when they're really looking at you and trying to figure out where your placing is going to be.
Yeah,
if it's close, then it goes into finals for most shows. But for me, if it's not, it honestly isn't about, like, I mean, a win is great. Winning a show feels awesome, and you want that. And it's a little bit different if, say, I was, instead of 4th at Nationals last year, I wanted to think about being 1st or 2nd.
Yeah.
But I think that what I value most in hindsight from a show is how my physique was and how it looked, and did I bring my best?
Sure.
So you have more room to fill and spill, for error, to nail it and keep it. You have more time. You just have more time and more variables at play, as long as you know how to control them.
That's huge, right?
90% at prejudging. Shit, okay, I'm not going to get the placing I want. I can still nail it for finals.
Yep.
Which is really, even though it was only like a 12-hour difference or whatever, what I did at Nationals last year. I came in, I didn't give myself enough time to go from full to dry and hard. For prejudging at finals, I was like dead on. Like, I was so impressed with my physique, and like I still have hundreds of photos of like that 3-hour window on my camera roll, right? Like, that's the best hour that my physique's ever seen. Now, if I had even more time from Friday morning to Saturday morning, could I have got even better? Well, yeah, I would have woke up harder and drier. So that's where I'm coming from.
The other thing,
definitely your way for convenience, though. I'll concede that.
the other thing I want to comment on that I know was an issue this past year was timing, which I think can be a factor. So, like, I know some of the men's physique guys were 2 hours behind schedule. So if you're peaking for 11 or like say 5 p.m., you don't go on till 7:30, 8 o'clock. Like that can make or break you, right? Like you said,
for
like
sure.
You looked really good for that hour. That's the best your physique's ever looked for that hour. Shit, what if it's an hour early? You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that, like, if you're not someone who is able to control that or knows how to, right? That can make or break you, right? That's where, for myself, when it came to that show in the States where it was just that, keep your physique on point for the next 5 hours, just get better and better as you go, right? And like for me, I get better as I pose. My coach has always said that. I felt that about myself. So when I go out there for prejudging and I get posing, get the carbs in my system, get some water, some salt from getting pumped up, like, it's good. And then I just have to maintain that and just keep getting better for finals, which is like 2 hours later. That for me is prime time.
Yeah. I always, obviously, you know me, I always err on the side of caution. I'm always like OCD. I'm always very cerebral with my approach. Like, you can tell by how I talk. But I like having more time to strategize and have a plan B and C and D if I need to.
Sure.
So something like that, like you said with that scenario where, of course, at Nationals, and people didn't know that when there's that many competitors, that's going to be, first of all, every bodybuilding show ever has ran behind schedule. Ever. None has ever
They're never
been on time. And you know that. So plan for it.
Yeah.
But if it's something that's like 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. for prejudging and finals versus 11 a.m. and 11 a.m. Friday and Saturday, well, it's a lot easier to plan ahead for something that's going to fall behind, right? You have that much more time. You have that much more leeway. So that's also my methodology on that. I mean, either way, if you're on, you're on. Honestly, if you're on, you're on. So if you're ready, then you're gonna show up 95% good instead of 100 at worst. Yeah. So like just be ready, and it shouldn't make that big of a difference. But it comes down to preference and convenience, sure, especially if you're traveling.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, man. The last thing I had that I jotted down as I wanted to touch on was your thoughts on the level of nattiness at this show.
Oh man, great question.
In this sport, for the listeners, there's always those who are going to try to cheat, going to try to beat the test, going to potentially not get tested. There's various situations that could arise, especially at this level of show that is affiliated with the IFBB. We're not going to get into that. But what do you think? Do you think it was clear-cut, natural competitors across the board, or do you think there could have been some shadiness? We're not going to name names. We're not going to be like that. But what do you think?
Thank God. Okay, nice. Thank you for saying that. I'm unconditionally honest. So, no. So, yeah, there's definitely a few that, I mean, it's questionable. And that's the most polite way of putting it.
Yep.
But, man, like, here's how you solve that, honestly. Luckily for me, like I said, and I'm unconditionally honest, it really isn't about a placing for me. It's about displaying my best physique at that time.
Yep.
So it's different if someone you learn or you have proof or you know someone that has proof for sure and you trust them. Or a person that you can link that to beat you out for a pro card. Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, you win a pro card and you're natural, and you want to compete in the IFBB and do well, you're making a change. You're making a
you,
change.
sir, are crossing the line.
Yeah, you are going to start crossing some T's and dotting some I's for sure. I thought it was I thought it was actually better than last year when I competed. And that's just from stage photos and stuff like that. Overall, I thought I'll say it. I thought the caliber of athletes across the board was a little bit lackluster compared to last year too. And that's not trying to say because I did nationals last year it was better. It's just my honest viewpoint on it.
Put it out there that just because.
I'll gladly admit there's so many more competitors that were better than me at nationals too in men's open bodybuilding, so I have no problem saying that. And I wouldn't have beat the guy that won lightweight. There's no way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't beat that guy. I'm just not at that level of development yet. But yeah, there's a few people in every division. Mostly, I mean, it's hard to tell with bikini girls, of course.
Yeah. But
it's also you shouldn't just leave it to that because you don't know where their starting points were. You don't know what their diet was like and their training. It all depends. There's always there's always doubt in the back of your head that it's a level playing field if you're truly natural.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't let that make or break your experience at nationals, or you should never let that dictate how you are going to prep. Yep. You're your own person. You're your own purse. So it's all good. There are a few that was definitely questionable. But that's their own prerogative, that's their own choice, that's their own ethical decision. So you can't rag on them for that.
Yeah.
What is scummy, what is definitely scummy, is if someone does do that and they duck an open pro qualifier to get the pro card and take it away from someone that is truly natural, you're a scumbag, and I'll tell you that, and I have no problem saying that. Go win it at an open pro qualifier then. First of all, see how well you do against way stiffer competition, obviously.
Yeah.
And then also, it's going to help you out in the long run because you're going to be at that level where you see people that are trying to qualify to turn pro in the IFBB. And guess what? Competition is going to be twice as strong in the IFBB. It's really scummy to do. But you can never just look at someone and say that they're on that. Think of the examples of greats that everyone can vouch for that it turned pro natural, and you're like, what? That bodybuilder turned pro naturally? And this is 15 other pros that he had competed against saying this at 195, 200 pounds, 205 pounds shredded.
Yeah.
Like, it is possible.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And at the end of the day, till a report comes out that someone's lost their pro card or lost their placing, we will never know. But yeah, I would agree with you. There was a few athletes that you look at and you might be questionable. But again, that doesn't harm what you accomplish at the show. People need to remember that at the end of the day. Like, you know, if you bring your best and they bring their best plus a little extra, nothing you can do about that.
And it just doesn't always turn out in favor for that person.
No,
right?
and that's the thing too. That's good thing you mentioned that. You know, it's not always a golden ticket for some people, right? Like you'd mentioned earlier in the podcast, like sometimes extra muscle on your frame can't always be a good thing, which in bodybuilding can kind of mess with your head a little bit. But I've said this before, especially as a lightweight, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Size doesn't always win, right? Like, there's shape, there's conditioning, there's symmetry. Like, yeah, it's a factor. Size is always, if you're going to find somebody with matching size or matching shape, matching conditioning, that's a lightweight and a heavyweight, the heavyweight's probably going to win. He's a bigger, it is bodybuilding. And I get that, right? But at the end of the day, like, it's not, like I said, it's not always a golden ticket if someone's taking external substances to be bigger. It could take away from them, right? So you just, again, go in with blinders on that you're going to do your best and let the cards fall where they may.
Could not agree more. That is good.
Cool.
In a pretty bow.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else, man, you wanted to touch on about this whole event?
No, well, first of all, we thoroughly covered it. But... like, congratulations if anyone ever sees this that did turn pro. Always congratulate. Like, it's an arduous journey.
Yep.
No matter what, to come up with a physique that is pro ready.
Yeah.
I guess pro caliber, and like, if I think, man, like, there's a couple overall winners that are pros now that next year they can make a splash in the IFBB. They can make a little bit of a, you know what I mean?
Yep,
turn some heads attention, which is always good, man. Always, any athlete, it doesn't matter if it's women's bikini or men's physique or if it's men's open bodybuilding. If they can put Canada on the map, that's always great.
Yep.
Yeah, like as inconsistent as conditioning might have been at the show, there were standouts, and there were standouts that are still going to be fighting for a pro card next year. So, I mean, congratulations to everyone. Good luck to everyone that plans on doing it in 2020. It's always great to see naturally turned pros do well, right? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, man, the coolest thing this year in the IFBB for me so far this year is to see Quentin doing work on stage.
Yeah.
Like, that's, and I never, you competed against him.
Yeah, to think that's what messes my head up, man. To think that I competed with him in juniors way back when, and now he's doing so well. But to also think that, like, I stood next to this guy, like, come on, I'm 150 pounds. Like, he's 100 pounds heavier than me. But, like, I'm super proud of him. Know him personally, so it's cool to see, right?
Yeah. Man, he was so cool, too. Like, last year when I was leading in the Nationals, he followed me on Instagram, and, like, we just DM'd for a little bit. And then I saw him at the host hotel, and, like, man, he was, like, so down to earth. Like, he was just
so chill.
Yeah, just, like, it was like we were buddies for 5 years before that. It was cool, man. He's, like, a good guy. It'd just be interesting to see, like, in a year what happens with, I think the physique overall winner is going to be good next year if she decides to compete.
Cool.
Women's physique.
Yeah, right on, man. Okay. I think we dissected this show pretty good. We should do this for the big ones. We should do this for the Ben Weeders coming up and stuff. This would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm down for that. Man, let's do some Olympia stuff. That's what I like, you know?
Ooh, cover. Who you got this year? Look quickly. You got a minute hot take. Who you got?
Crazy, right? Dude, it's crazy. So Phil Heath isn't competing, I don't think.
No, I think he's out. Man. Roden's out.
Imagine if he came back in. Roden is back in after all that hoopla and all the legal troubles and stuff like that. Man, and I said it before in a previous podcast, like 2013 to 2015 or 16, Roden is like my favorite physique of all time.
Yep.
With that size, he loses a bit of his lines, blah, blah, blah. Not so much anymore. How good did Dexter Jackson look, man? How good did Dexter Jackson look?
He killed it.
He's literally your grandpa's grandpa and he's kicking ass on stage.
I love it.
I don't know, man. It's wide open. I don't think Bonac is going to be quite as dangerous without Yoda with him, but he could prove me wrong for sure. Who knows?
I think
Curry.
That's the name I was going to drop was Brandon Curry. I think it's going to be him and Dexter are going to be neck and neck. Luke Sando looked really good in Tampa. I think he's a top 6-7 placing. I don't think he's top 3 yet, but I think in the future he's going to be a threat. But yeah, I think you'll see Curry and Dexter fight for it. I really do. Other than that, like you said, I think Bonac came, what was he, 3rd last year?
Yeah, oh shit. There we go. No, I'm still here. Yeah, Bonac he's the wild card, man, because his structure is like Branch, right? Remember Branch in 2009? I mean,
yeah.
Jay came back and he just shut the door, right? But Branch he's just different looking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
very,
so
very
if he's
blocky.
on, where do you place him? Do you put him first or do you put him 7th? You know what I mean? Like, he's going to have, the thing about Bonac is, unfortunately, if he adds another 5 or 6 pounds of muscle, where do you put it, right?
Yeah.
It's the same idea as when Philly's physique looked crowded.
Yeah.
Now, crowded being second at the Olympia instead of first is still a good physique. But Bonac, he's at that delicate spot. Another Canadian pro that I feel is the same way as Joe Seaman, right? Turned pro in Toronto, but you put another 10 or 12 pounds of muscle on his physique, where does it go?
Yep.
Right? I don't know. There's a few that it's really wide open, man, because who knows what happened with Roden during that time, right? Stress, and who knows, if he was still, he didn't miss a day of training, he didn't miss a meal or anything like that. Who knows what it's like? Yeah, honest to God, man, what a crazy story it would be if Dexter comes back at 467 years old and wins the Olympics. What a story.
What a story. Calls it a day. Puts his hat off. Just hangs the trunks up. You know what? I've done it now.
Dude, that'd be and I know, we gotta find a way to get him to see this because I know he's a Game of Thrones fan, but he'd be like the lady in red, he'd be like Melisandre, you just take off that thing and then all of a sudden you just see how old he is and he'd actually be 800 years old and just gray hair and for sure.
For sure.
Maybe my favorite bodybuilder of all time, though.
Is Dexter?
Oh, the Blade?
The Blade. Again, those Flex magazines. He had friggin' arm workouts. I'm sure we all did.
Dude, think of how many magazine covers he's been on hitting them most muscular. You know what I mean?
All those traps. The Dexter traps.
Dude, a Kleenex box for traps. You know what I mean?
Cool. So cool. All right, we'll plan that then. Definitely Olympia coverage for sure. I think we should do this for at least the big ones, for the big shows.
Oh, for sure. There we go.
All right, dude. Sounds good. Okay. Again, like Brandon said, for all you athletes that received your pro card, for those first-time national competitors, you guys killed it. You really did. You know what? It's nothing to shake your head at. Keep plucking. Yeah, that's all I can say. It's a journey, and you're on it with us.
Oh, for sure.
All right, dude. You have a good night. We're over an hour deep, so if anybody stuck around for this long, comment biceps on this video.
Oh, yeah. Text 2 friends. Share it in your story. You know what I mean?
Tag 2 friends.
Do it then. I don't care.
Yeah. All good things. Okay, man. You have a good night, and we'll line up the next one soon.
Sounds good, man.
Everybody that watched, thanks again. Subscribe. Follow us both on Instagram. Cheap plug. Branden Liezert 93. Leroy _Rollins _fitness. And we'll see you guys in the next one.